The podcast universe has exploded with amazing content for everyone to listen to. And there are so many incredible shows with just not enough time to listen to all of them. So if you're asking yourself, what do I listen to? The answer is real simple. Thrive Loud is the must-listen to, can't miss an episode, gotta hear what's next, most fun, energizing, and inspiring podcast show you'll ever encounter. With hundreds of episodes of guests ranging from CEOs, entrepreneurs, innovators, thought leaders, inspiring speakers to amazing humans, Thrive Loud is the real deal. Listen in as Lou Diamond decodes what makes incredible people thrive. If you're a regular listener, you already know this. And if this is your first time listening, get ready to Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond. Today on Thrive Loud, we have the co-founder and partner at Allison+Partners. He is a trusted advisor to some of today's best-known technology brands. In his role as global president, he focuses on the growth and operations of the agency's two largest regions, Asia and the United States. He serves as global chair of the technology practice, spearheading work in both the consumer and B2B categories. Thrive Lab listeners coming to us across the Pacific Ocean from Tokyo at a time that we could only figure out how to make a podcast work with a 13-hour time difference, the Jonathan Heit. Jonathan, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Lou. Thanks.
Well, I was going to say good morning because it's morning here, but it's evening by you. And I think you've got a great story of an unbelievable firm. Your own personal development and growth is pretty cool. So what I wanted the Thrive Loud listeners to hear, Jonathan, was kind of rewinding a little bit and go back and start, not from the womb, if you would. We want to kind of go from the point, I guess, when this became your main focus and how it grew into what you're doing today.
Sure. It's a bit of a circuitous route, but I'll try and keep it somewhat condensed. We are storytellers for a living, both you and I. So I think I can pull that off. I'll sort of go back to, when I was in school, and for those listeners who don't know, we went to college together, and I was on the track thinking that medicine was the path for me. But I was really strong in areas that were not related to science, which apparently for a medical doctor is not a calling card. So I quickly recognized coming out of school that was not going to be my forte, and I got into healthcare communications. I really enjoyed writing. I really enjoyed storytelling. I really enjoyed the whole idea of being able to frame up a really compelling narrative. But my background was all healthcare and science-based, so that was the right way to start. Worked for some pharmaceutical companies, had worked with a lot of healthcare companies who were doing medical education for doctors, so we were creating the materials.
Got it.
And truthfully, it was really interesting to me, all of the storytelling side of it, but it really was a little restricted. The FDA and the way you had to talk about pharma was just a little bit restrictive to me, and it was an interesting time in the world of technology as the internet boom was nascent, and really started to see an interest in technology bloom in me and in the marketing field at the same time. So from there, I started to work at a smaller shop where I focused on some internet technology companies, as well as a small consumer electronics concern at the time that was doing microwaves, TV VCRs, really, more entry-level product. And
right.
That was Samsung Electronics. And we'll get back to that later, as it really became a cornerstone for the agency that I'm at today. And as the internet boom really started to take off, that's where this got to be a lot of fun. We just had a lot of room to grow, a lot of room to expand. And I worked with a couple of guys that were doing some interesting things, that were part of a larger agency, and they were opening up a Los Angeles office. And I said, you know what, I think I'd like to try something different. I was living in New York at the time and wanted to give it a go out on the West Coast. Mm-hmm. I've always sort of had that interest in trying new things and really just how we could expand the operation. And I was, instantly taken by that idea that technology and storytelling could come together in Hollywood, where entertainment would play a part in it. And I was dead wrong. It didn't happen. The dot-com bust followed soon after. We were really scrambling, trying to figure out how to make it work. And at that time, Scott Allison and another gentleman named Andy Hardy Brown led a management buyout of that old agency, and we started Allison+Partners. So I was part of the founding team of Allison+Partners. We were in Los Angeles and San Francisco. That was September 1st, 2001, when we thought that we were at our lowest point, and soon after we're proven wrong yet again. And so we just, really were born out of that dot-com bust and this sort of lowest point for a lot of scenarios, and really had to work our way out of it. But what happened then is really the story of Allison+Partners. Okay. And that's where we just really started to build a business that was centered around doing things differently. We really wanted to build a people-centric business. There was, at the time, and really still today, there are a few mega global PR and marketing agencies, all owned by the three largest holding companies. And there were some really strong, what might be called mom and pop shops, unfairly. They do specialty work, maybe in LA in entertainment. In New York, they might do fashion, or they may just really be focused on one market. There's some really great agencies in places like Austin and Portland and Tokyo, for that matter, as I'd come to learn, much later on. So we really felt that there was this hole in the middle of the market that could be capitalized on if we ran the business correctly. And again, in those early days, it was really about survival, but we quickly worked our way through it. And that next wave of Internet 2.0 is where we really started to, at least again, from my viewpoint, working on consumer technology, got our groove. We were working at the time with the original YouTube founders, helping them make their name. We had actually, before that, had launched MySpace, which was the first of its kind social network. So it really set the stage for a lot of what we would do later, working with so many of those brands. And being headquartered in San Francisco, it was a natural place, the cradle of innovation around technology, to do that. But, at the same time, we still saw the ability to grow in a variety of different categories. So we brought people on with expertise in corporate PR, in CPG, in other real interesting categories that maybe weren't my specialty or any of the original Allison+Partners members. So we opened in New York pretty quickly, and we really started to see opportunities in different markets where this was necessary. Our way, our approach was we were going to be received well, because what we really focused on, again, no matter what the business was that we were doing, and that rings true today, what was most important was that we built a presence in a market at a place where people really loved coming to work every day, and clients really gravitated toward us because we thought differently about the way we approach things, and we brought senior level talent onto the business. And so we have a collection of 30 offices now, wow, none of which are any bigger than 60 people in an office. So there's a real, small office feel, almost a boutique agency feel in each of these offices, yet we are, a top 20 global agency now.
Kudos and thank you for the full run through here, which was awesome. Yes. Because I'm glad I didn't ask from the womb. That would have been fun. No, I'm just kidding. But what I love about this, Jonathan, and listen to the success over these years. What you hit upon is something really interesting. That you're a storyteller and that your firm is focused on that. This is where I'm going to start here with the questions. A lot of times, your clients think they have one story, and when they work with you, they recognize that there's another way to communicate that message. So this actually goes to I guess, the way that you listen at Allison+Partners. How do you go about working with your clients? And you talked about your unique methods and whatnot in really trying to pull the essence or that core that connects with the audience or the targets of who your clients are trying to reach?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we've got, a number of different processes that we've put in place, depending on what it is we're trying to do. Are we launching a product into the market? Is it a thought leadership campaign? Is it a paid media approach? Is it a customer journey? But at the heart of it, as you say, is really synthesizing what the story is inside there. And really, it comes from getting time from the senior most people at the organization who are willing to sit down with our folks and our team for even just an hour or two to really get through and past the marketing speak and the jargon and get to a place where you're really getting to the emotional crux of why you're doing this. Something that's going to bring someone in and have them stick around and really buy into the belief that you have in your own organization or in your own story. We don't do book PR. We don't do movie PR. We really work with, again, large multinational corporations and startups and, really everything in between. But at the end of the day, if that story doesn't have an emotional center to it, there's really no reason for a customer or for an influencer to buy in and share that with others, right? What is the experience of that brand? And I think that every single person in our agency goes about it a different way, though based on some central tenets. But the difference, again, is we've got people who have 15, 20 years experience spending time. And your CEO doesn't want to have to worry about spending hours and hours and hours going through this. They want somebody that can, again, quickly synthesize that information and put it forward into the market in an interesting way.
Yeah. I was going to ask this question because it's very fitting and also telling, obviously, as the path of Allison+Partners was there right at the inception and boom and bust or boom, whichever is up and down of technology and the
Depends
internet.
when this airs.
Exactly. Sometime in October 2019. So the question here is this: obviously, the mediums and the means in which you're utilizing PR to help get the message across for your clients has been evolving and changing with internet technology, social media, et cetera. How have you managed to keep the methodology and the new means and the delivery vehicle, for lack of a better word, of helping your clients get their message? How has that challenge been as a leader and as an organization as you've evolved over these years?
It's been absolutely the sort of driving force of our entire being, right? I mean, it really is the central challenge we've had, but also one that I think we've played a part in creating. When I go back to those early days working with YouTube, our first big success for them, and this was back in the day when success in PR was pretty much exclusively a Sunday style section in the New York Times layout, right? Or a magazine cover or the Today Show. Sort of had all of those, right? I mean, it was Time Person of the Year. They had the Today Show. But what really stuck out was this Sunday style section all about influence. They didn't call it that, but it was influencers. And you've got these teenage girls who are doing makeup tips on this little known video site that have millions and millions of views. And who could have imagined that this many years later, that's precisely how so many of our consumer brands go out and get their message out there. Right. But the one thing that stays consistent in that, and I think where PR agencies that were born out of that public relations discipline have a unique advantage over sort of ad agencies or digital agencies, is we always had to clear that hurdle, right? We always had to pitch an editor or a writer or a journalist who was, frankly pretty cynical about what we were coming to them with. So we had to really have an editorial credence to what we put forward that allowed it to not be purely a promotional marketing play. Right. So those stories, by definition, are going to have more of a hook. You're not just clicking through an ad or watching it because somebody paid for it. That spot, as we like to say, had to be earned. And I think today, even if it's a paid piece of content that we put out, and that's probably half of what we do these days, if not more, we still look at it through that editorial lens. Would this work with the New York Times editors, right? Would this work for the former the producers of the Today Show as it used to operate, right? Because now all of these media outlets are blending paid and earned as well. So it's not necessarily the same there either. But for us, we like to continue to put it through that lens because we believe that takes you, again, out of the marketing speak and into the emotional core of a story.
Jonathan, we've had a lot of very successful entrepreneurs and CEOs who've had unbelievable growth come on this program. And one of the biggest challenges that they have is managing the growth and maintaining the culture. What have you been doing as a leader to try to keep that essence of what Allison+Partners is all about? What you started with 4 people back in LA or California or San Francisco. Can't remember which coast it was, but somewhere in LA, somewhere in that time zone.
It was both. It was LA and San Francisco. And there was 4 of us that are still there today. It was a team of about 12 or 13. And I think we did the math recently. And from the time we started, it's been about over 6,000% growth.
Wow.
And double-digit growth almost every year. And it's the culture. It's interesting that you say that because one of our 4 co-founders was really focused on that from the beginning. He was really all about culture. And he and I ran the LA office together. And I was sort of this young, I got to get to work. I can't be bothered with that stuff. That's the fluff. What are we worried about? And it took, and this is where I'd say, everybody says you need a founder and a co-founder. We have that in Scott and Andy, but you also need a team around them of sort of really people who are selfless, people who are thinking about the business at all times. And Scott Pansky, the gentleman I'm talking about, is really one of those who from the very beginning said, we need to put our core values on paper. And once I finally bought in, I said, that's great. But what we have to do is this can't be the 4 of us in a room saying, here's what they are. Now go do these. We got the entire company together at an offsite and took feedback from people throughout the organization. One of them was a real junior level account coordinator who's now another partner at the agency who really helped frame up, what do you want this agency to look like? And we tried to future-proof it as much as possible. They really do still exist pretty much in their original form. But as you look at markets like Tokyo, like Beijing, and like Munich, where they have to take a life of their own. So I think what the idea is have a framework of core values and a culture that's important and really defines the agency, but allow it to be alive, right? Allow it to have some flexibility so that individual marketplaces and individual teams can make it their own. And that, I think, has really been critical to our ability to succeed on that front.
So, Jonathan, growth is one thing. Global growth is another. And picking yourself up and moving to the other side of the earth is another move for yourself. Let's talk about carrying the culture across seas. You just recently moved over into Tokyo. What's the state of being of the PR world on that side of the planet, and the main focus that you're driving right now in your personal development and the firm's development as well on that side of the ocean?
Sure. We really only opened in Asia, I believe, about 5 years ago. It's been a mix of acquisitions that really started from partnerships. We'd work on an account or two together, build a relationship more deeply. And the other principal co-founder, Andy Hardy Brown, had moved his family here for 3 years in Singapore and spent a lot of time here building deep relationships with the teams here. And as he returned to the States, really felt it was important. We as a team felt it was important to make sure that it's so easy to lose contact, not be connected on a daily basis with folks on the other side of the world from time zones alone.
Yeah.
As you mentioned at the outset, right? Excuse me. So we really felt it was important to have a presence. And really for me, I think it's been one of the greatest privileges of my career to be able to spend time with teams in so many different markets. I've always had a love of travel and a love of learning other cultures, and Tokyo is just a vibrant, vital city with so many amazing things happening that also conveniently is 3 hours or so from Seoul,
right?
2.5 or so hours from Beijing, maybe a little bit more to Shanghai. And so to be able to be on the same time zone as so many team members that I work with on a regular basis, as well as to be able to get to them locally while also spending time with the team here, was just an opportunity that made a lot of sense. And then, fortunately, I married well and have a wife who has raised, 2 kids who have a spirit of adventure, and we're really was never a question of should we do this. It was, hey, how soon can we make this work? Because it sounds like a really special opportunity for us and for the family. So that's been great. I don't think if I didn't have that support system that I would have been able to do it. But I will say, I mean, I am still, I'm only a month in here, and I'm learning so much more than I'm teaching, so to speak, every single day. And yeah, each market, people talk about Asia or they talk about APAC as if it's this one geography, this one region. It's really not. It's multiple individual entities that, yes, share some history and yes, can more easily work together due to geography and location and time zone. But each one has its unique. I mean, look at China. It is just this massive monolith of incredibly hardworking and overachieving team members that are just doing really incredible things. And you look at Korea, where the infrastructure is a little bit different than what it might be in the US, and has sort of built something really over the last 60 years to become one of the world's strongest economies is almost unparalleled. And then you've got Japan with its impact on culture and the advertising world and really just design and aesthetic that really lives in everything you see today. To see that firsthand, I think really allows me to be better at my ability to go back to our teams in the States and say, hey, have you thought about doing something this way? But also, again, I think a real major reason that I'm here is to be able to, again, go back to the team in the States and in Europe for that matter and say, hey, when you're working with this team, here's something you need to think about. The Japanese culture doesn't approach things in the same way that the U.S. does. And I think there's a lot of misunderstanding and there's a lot of potential disconnects. So when that happens, people just shut down. They just isolate on both sides. So we'll just do our thing, you do your thing. And for us, there was no reason to have a global agency if that's the way it was going to be. We always say we don't want to be a U.S. agency doing work in other markets. We want to be a truly global organization. And that really comes from, again, personal relationships, technology that can allow the different geographies to link up, as well as really a dedicated leadership team. And that's, the co-founders and my fellow global presidents who oversee other areas of Europe and the digital and content team in Asia, all together as one unit working, overlapping and not worrying about hard lines to say, let's make sure our people are thinking globally.
Yeah.
From the time, everything from the times you set up a conference call, thinking not just about yourself, but also them and their time zone, to understanding that if you send a email in English, and now all of our teams are bilingual. They're an incredible group that really is, superlative in every way. But if you send a long-winded 3-page email in English, it's probably not going to be read as closely than if you had been more thoughtful about that approach. So, it's just something that really drives us every day to be culturally appropriate and smart about how we're doing work globally.
Jonathan, I joke about it when I coach organizations and help their sales team. Anyone that sends an email that requires scrolling is too long. So
scrolling on a phone,
on a phone, exactly.
Scrolling on a computer screen. But I'll tell you, Lou, the reason we did it, and really there's no mystery to it, is we were really starting to miss out on opportunities where global organizations said, the RFPs would come in and they'd need 3, 4, 5 markets. And we would have to string together partnerships with other agencies. And I think there's a lot to be said for independent agencies that operate, as I said, in 1 or 2 markets. But for the ambition that we had ultimately, and what we wanted to and still want to accomplish as an agency, it just wasn't possible if we weren't truly global.
Jonathan, you're kicking on all cylinders and your firm is doing amazing every year. That growth number is astounding, whether people in revenue and all of that, and kudos on that front. It doesn't always happen every single day, that amazing growth. So on those days that you're not quite thriving, what practice do you personally seek or individually you seek out to help get yourself back on the thriving track?
That's a great one. I mean, this public relations is an industry that by its nature will humble you every day. I mean, if you go back to the core media relations skill, which is go and pitch the media to write a story that they inherently basically don't want to write, you're going to hear no quite often. So, and then you take that to the larger building a business side of it and trying to win new business and growing offices and dealing with the ebbs and flows of that. And there's more than enough, kicking you while you're down to happen. But, I think I really do a couple of things. For me, if my day starts with a workout of any sort, I just go out and run for 2 miles or take a class or do whatever. The rest of my day feels better, even if it's, meditation or anything. I think you've got to have some sort of ability to center yourself first thing in the morning. And it really just makes me so much more productive the rest of the day. When I can, maximizing time with the family, because nothing puts things in perspective more than watching your 5-year-old see Tokyo Tower lit up at night and it being, the most important thing in the world to him. So a lot of times anything that was too troubling will kind of wash away after that. But also, I mean, really just, we don't look around very often. And, you talk a lot about the success, and for the purposes of this, I'll go back and look at some of the things we've accomplished, but that's very rare for us. We're so focused and in the day to day that we're not really relishing our success. But when I really think about, the number of people we've been able to create opportunities for, whether they're still with Allison+Partners or currently clients or teaching at a university or at another agency, God forbid, they're still doing something that I know we had a piece of that we helped create that opportunity and really creating these lifelong careers for many other people who've been with the agency. Our turnover rate is far lower, I think, because of our continued investment from our founding partners and really the way we approach things, that to know that we've built teams that have been together for as long as they are and have been to each other's weddings and have watched, in the next generation of children and babies come along and just people really living their best lives and creating opportunities we have a global exchange program where we send folks from one office to another for previously we've done it for 6 months. We might do it for 1 month, but whatever that is, to create an opportunity that somebody never would have had if they hadn't signed on to this sort of crazy group of dreamers that built this thing 20 years ago. It really again puts everything in perspective and really allows you to realize that those little losses, they go away, but the victories and the feel good moments, they really stick around forever.
I want to thank you, Jonathan, for pulling back the kimono. Very appropriate analogy. Because I think you just gave a little bit of a hint to our listeners as to what makes the culture over there so special and some of the things you've been able to do. So kudos to you and for sharing your personal workout thing. I'm trying to imagine you running around the streets of Tokyo. Let's do the admin part, Jonathan. We'll put it all in the show notes. Share with the listeners all the places people can learn about you, Allison+Partners, places, websites, social media stuff, all that fun. You're in PR. You should have this down.
You're not going to put me to the test. So yeah, we have an incredible marketing team that has a lot of our leaders out there all the time. So I would Google Allison+Partners and you'll find folks like David Wolf and Scott Allison and Scott Pansky talking about topics that are incredibly compelling. Kathy Blanchard and Annie Kolikova, see these names show up and read anything that they're writing and that they're talking about, because that's always really interesting. Obviously, our website, I'm on AllisonPR.jp right now because we're in Japan, but AllisonPR.com is really the place where we house our podcast as well as our blog, the stream, we call it. But I would say the one place where if you're really just going to have one chance to visit our site is go to the Insights page. And you'll see on there, we've done a series of reports on the impact of influence. We've created a quantifiable approach to influence, as well as looking at influencers across the world of social impact, across the world of different geographies, as well as in consumer marketplace, that I think are really just scratching the surface of what you'll see continuing to come from us. Ownable IP that we believe really is changing the way people can look at and measure public relations. Probably the biggest change in our field is how measurable it is these days. It's something that the teams that have done that have done really an incredible job. So I would highly recommend taking a look at that.
We will definitely put that all out there. Now I want to have a little more fun. I was going to say now I'm going to start having fun, but I know with Jonathan we'll have a good time here. All right. So Jonathan, if you could, we'll get the signature question out of the way, and then I'm going to have a little more fun here. Jonathan, what's your all-time favorite movie?
I don't know what it says about me, but Goodfellas really just always strikes me as, maybe it's being from New Jersey and just kind of the ability of Scorsese to weave a story with music and to cross these timelines from, that movie covers 40 years, right? And you see the character evolution and just some of the best acting you'll ever see in one place. You kind of forget it's a mob movie. It just becomes this masterpiece of editing and filmmaking that I can never really put anything above it, though there's probably many that would be side by side with it for me.
It's really interesting because the movies that have managed to glorify the bad guys, for lack of a better word, I've always found to be amazing. Like, you're literally rooting for the bad guys and want to see them succeed and loving hearing their stories no matter what happens. And to your point, the music that he melds through, which is probably a little bit of a little autobiographical love of what he lived through. Scorsese growing up in Little Italy and all over New York, and obviously touching some of these key components in his life is pretty cool as well. Which brings me to the next question for you, Jonathan. What is Jonathan's jam? If he's running around the streets of Tokyo, getting in shape and jogging, what is the beat that gets him going and keeps him moving forward?
There's so many. And music is such a really central part of my life. But again, being born and raised in Freehold, New Jersey, and I can't ever get too far from Bruce Springsteen. It's his 70th birthday today, actually. So a little nod to him and Born to Run. When I hear my little guy singing along to Born to Run, and I think about the fact that, this song is going to live on forever. It's really outstanding. But honestly, most of my workouts, though, I like to hear, just some, less words, more just a beat that kind of keeps me going. So I really just put on a workout mix on Spotify, and whatever's served up, for the most part, I can run with. I used to run with no music at all. I really just like to use that as my Zen moment. But now that I'm running random streets in Tokyo, I need to have my phone with me with a map. So in case of emergency. So I figured as long as I have it, I might as well start listening to some music. So it's relatively new to me to be running with music, but I am enjoying it.
Jonathan Heit, I truly honored to have you on the program. I think we're all glad that you didn't stick with pre-med back in those college days. And a whole bunch of...
Especially those patients.
Right. And continued success to you, Allison+Partners. And man, keep kicking it and just keep doing what you're doing, because I think the way you lead and the way you communicate this style is not only great for your clients, but creating an environment and culture that is to be respected and admired. So way to go, my friend. Excellent. And thank you so much for coming on Thrive Loud.
Well, right back at you, sir. It's amazing what you built here, and I'm just glad to be a part of it. So thanks for having me.
You got it, brother. And to all our Thrive Loud listeners out there, thank you for joining us. Until next time, keep driving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. And follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Thrive Loud. Or find us on the web at thriveloud.com.